Get ready to feel
the power.
That's Colin Crandall, myself, Adam Rorda, here for another episode of MMA Power Hour here on Fight Television and the Hannibal TV. Colin, we've got another amazing show ahead of us. You know, we started a couple minutes late. We're just kind of in the groove. We've been doing that for a while. Show up in stylish, right?
Oh, yeah. Fashionably late, they used to call it. And we apologize for that. We appreciate you guys staying with us. And we're excited for episode number 2 in the new studio here. Third wheel. And, you know, they say you don't want to be the third wheel, but when you're in a podcast studio, you can't beat the guys here at Third Wheel, so we're happy. We're happy to be that third wheel.
No, doing awesome things for us here, getting things going with MMA Power Hour version 8.975. Super excited to just go into the new year here for everybody with a whole new look, whole new vibe, and you've got Colin and me. You'll be able to see me a lot more often, actually, as you guys saw last week that we're tuning in. If you were not tuning in last week, you missed out. Colin and I had quite the Rumble session.
Yeah, we did. It was about as wild and irreverent as the MMA Power has ever been. We had a couple of guests didn't show up, and you know we never end up as deers in the headlights, except maybe a second or two here.
I do all the time.
Well, I once in a while do. I'll try not to, but this time I ended up more like the maniacal host with stand-up comedy and MMA. In fact, we really didn't put that show out and share it and get it to a lot of people because it was a little bit nuts. But basically, if you guys want to look it up, it's funny. Probably one of our funniest episodes ever, and we may release it en masse to the usual amount of people that want.
Oh, that's going to be on Spotify someday, Joe Rogan style, for sure.
Yeah.
So, Colin, we have 3 amazing guests, and it's all brought to all of you out there by Lith Token. It's LITHTOKEN.
Yep.
Head on over to lithtoken.io and check it out. A lot of great things going on with sustainability and ethics in business, and it's all driven by the cryptocurrency Lith Token. A lot of amazing guests here today. Colin, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know about it and who's coming on? When are we talking to them?
Absolutely, and you guys, I believe in the Lith token as well, so it's good stuff. When they say IO, that means you won't have to say IO, although nothing's a guarantee, but it's a quality investment for just a fraction of a penny, and you could be a multimillionaire for your $1,000 you have right now, maybe. But anyway,
no promises.
No promises for sure. You know, and what they say, I'm not a Slice certified investment advisor. In fact, I guess I'm not a certified anything advisor, but I try to know what I'm talking about.
Not certified.
Anything.
You're certifiably insane.
That's what
right?
it is. That I am.
You've got papers.
I do. I'm paper carrying and maniac. For
crazy enough to do this with MMA.
Yeah, that's it, man. I tell you, that takes craziness for sure.
Oh, it takes a special kind.
I appreciate it, and we both have that. And that's why the magic happens here at least once in a blue moon. So this episode, we've got a lot of great people, and since Dr. Adam Rorda requested, we're going to give it away and let you know our first guest, and I think we see him right there, even though
yeah, it's on time.
Right, yeah. Why don't we get right to him? Our first guest, one of the world's best grapplers, Marcus Buchecha Almeida. Marcus, can you hear me?
Yes. How are you guys doing?
Doing very well, my friend. How about yourself?
Good, very good.
So glad to have you here. Been a fan for a while. I've been watching jiu-jitsu for many years. If I would have stuck to it like you did, I could have been maybe a black belt, 1/10 as talented as you. But I didn't get that far. Still a purple belt, but I'm working on it if my body doesn't give out. But big respect for you and everything you've done. And now you're with One Championship, and I know they have grappling as well as MMA. Are you signed on to do both? I believe you are, right?
Being honest, my focus with One Championship is just for MMA. But of course, if some grappling match that makes sense, I would be down to do it for sure. But that wasn't the first thought.
Understood.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. So MMA focus, that makes sense. And I know one thing that's unique about you is you have great accomplishments with gi and without gi. I've always been the no gi guy, so I watch a lot more no gi. But correct me if I'm wrong. I think you have just as good accomplishments with gi as in no gi, or is it more on one side?
No, yeah, 100%. I have way more in the gi because like I always been like a gi fighter, but as a fighter, I always like to test myself. So I used to like just take the gi off and train some no gi. When I was brown belt, I started doing that, and then I won like two ADCC titles as like my one of two of my biggest no gi accomplishments.
Absolutely.
But that but definitely my gi accomplishments are much better.
Interesting. And we've had your Nogi opponent Gordon Ryan on the show before and had a great chat with him. Would he ever consider meeting you with the gi?
No,
I didn't
he
think
doesn't
so.
fight with the gi.
No, I was thinking
Yeah,
that.
no.
Yeah, that would be a disaster for him.
Yeah.
But that match was such a good match. Did it go kind of as you expected? It was so close. I know, obviously, you were expecting and planning for a victory, although this was so close to a victory. Such an even fight. But did anything surprise you in that matchup, or did it kind of go similar to what you were expecting?
No, being honest, that fight was one of the most boring fights of the DCC's history because nothing happened, right? Not just
Yeah.
because I lost, but
Right.
I mean, it was supposed to be a final, like a great final, and was like too much stud, and nobody tried to like test, nobody tried to risk anything, so it was kind of like a boring fight to watch.
Yeah, I know that
So
in professional wrestling on TV here in the United States, when they would have a match like that, they would say, "Oh, it was a very technical match," to make it
yeah,
look
it's
right.
no, but yeah, I wouldn't say technical. It was boring, right? As
Right.
a expecter, like I would say, it was boring, and I'm fighting. I can tell that too, and Gordon agrees because that's we're supposed to do another fights to make it better because we could make like a much better fight, but unfortunately was like I didn't have the title, he neither, so we both wanted like really bad, so that's why nobody tried to risk much, and that's why the fight goes that way.
Absolutely, and that makes sense because you're both amazing fighters. You're both right there in your prime. You're big, strong guys. You're really, really knowledgeable, and even though, like you said, perhaps it was a boring fight, but it also showed the equal skill level that you guys have, and there are very few heavyweights that have this skill level. I know you're up there with Gordon, and then Andre Galvao, and probably the three of you in no gi, and that says a lot. But now I'm excited about seeing you in MMA. I know Gordon signed also to one championship in MMA. Would that be a fight that would interest you? And if so, would it be interesting to you probably early or more than likely after you both have a few fights?
No, actually he signed just for grappling,
Oh,
his
okay.
agreement. Yeah,
Ah,
so he's not thinking about MMA, and um uh so I think it's never gonna happen. If
gotcha.
he fights, if he fights MMA, probably one should be his home. But when he signed, was just grappling on his agreement.
Understood. And since you signed for MMA, should we take that to mean that perhaps we're not going to see you in grappling ever again, or not so much, or is it possible you can do some MMA and some grappling?
Being honest, like I said, I'll fight like a grappling match or like even a gi match, but it makes sense because I think it's never been about money for jiu-jitsu, right? So it's not gonna be now, especially because MMA is much better thinking about money wise, right?
Hmm.
So, but if it's some fights that make sense and I really want to fight, I think I'll do it. So I never said I retire from grappling or from jiu-jitsu in the gi.
Hmm.
But right now there is no like such a match that I feel interesting in fighting because I fought pretty much everyone that is out there nowadays. So I don't feel like fighting no one.
Understood. And forgive me if I don't recall, but did you ever compete with Andre Galvao in grappling?
Yes, I never fought him no gi, but we fought twice, and I got one victory, and he has one victory, so we tied.
And that was with gi.
So André Galvão
Yep.
with gi,
Mhm.
and of course André Galvão, in my opinion, now it's one of the greatest like
Yes.
no-gi fighters, and he has the most titles, and for sure one match against him would like make a lot of sense, because that's what I'm talking about, like fights that make sense with
Right.
Andre is one of those fights, because he accomplished so much in the sport. So he has like the most ADCC titles in the history of the sport. So that's the kind of fights that I feel like interesting in, in do it.
Absolutely. What do you think would happen if Gordon fought Galvao with no gi?
Being honest, if I have to pick one, it would be like a tough fight for sure, 100%. But I would say Andre,
Right.
based in the last appearance of the ADCC. I think Andre was was crazy prepared, and of course it was 2019, so
Right.
it's a lot of things can change for like in 2 3 years. But if I say they fight that day, I think Andre would win. But
Right.
of course I don't. But like I said, three years goes by, so I don't know.
Because Andre is
But I'm
40.
basing like,
Yeah, he's like 40 or 41 now, isn't he?
yeah, exactly. So it counts a lot, but he's a great athlete. So I still think that if he fights, he's gonna show up in great shape, and he's gonna do his best to win for sure.
Absolutely. Now, this we'll get to MMA for all our MMA fans shortly, but the last thing I wanted to discuss on jiu-jitsu is there are different rule sets in different jiu-jitsu organizations, as you know. There's the EBI rules. You have, ADCC. You have, I think maybe Worlds is different. Then you have Chael Sonnen's submission underground grappling. What rule set do you prefer? Do you feel they're all equal? Would you be equally as excited to compete in all the different rule sets, or do you feel some of them make much more sense and some of them you don't like?
Being honest, like that is so much rules and so much. It's hard to pick, but I think the most like makes sense for me is the words, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's something that I've been fighting for so long. I don't like EBI rules. I mean, it's really entertaining to watch, but as a fighter, I never fought EBI because I never fight EBI because I think I don't like the rules, and I think uh, why the guy gonna start in my back if he didn't earn it, if he didn't pass my guard, and or just so that means he stalls for 10 minutes and then he get chance to start in my back and then get like a easy chance to submit me. So of course, like I'm saying, to entertaining, I would watch, yeah, for sure, but I wouldn't fight. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I don't agree with that. You don't deserve to start in my back or to start with my arm if you didn't earn the position, if you didn't pass my guard, if you didn't put me in risk. But a lot of guys are training just for that. You know what I mean? So of course they're doing better. They know the game. They stall a lot and to take to the overtime to start the fight like that. So it's something that I don't like, right? So
Understood.
submission, submission only, no time limit. Yeah, okay, but tell me, who gonna watch like a 1 hour fight? No one, right?
Right.
So I
Uh,
think,
Yeah.
yeah, like I saw like some guys that did like 1 hour fights, so make no sense because
Right.
when you put like a time limit, I think it's more entertaining, right? So but because you have to be able to do what you have to do to meet your opponent with like enough time frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
UFC one was like kind of no time limit, but now we have rules, we have time, right? So it's like it got better, right? So I think no time limit, it's something that I don't like too. So
Right. Although that was kind of the original Gracie Jiu-Jitsu with Elio Gracie 50 years ago and 60 years ago. this was the rules. But understandable, I think it was a different society, was different now. The people were so enthusiastic about it, and I think maybe most people watching were people involved in training, and so they were willing to watch that. But yeah, I think probably now the audience isn't there for that type of a thing. But it's amazing when you know the stories. Elio Gracie winning in like 2 hours and 45 minutes, and the guy weighs 100 kilos more than him, So this was an amazing time, but I think you feel that for now in society, most people would not enjoy that.
Yeah, no, for sure. You said it all. Like it was part of the beginning, was part of the history, but now it's times are different, right? So imagine if you want to get on the TV, so you need to know how long it will take, right? So it's something that it's hard to try to sell to the TV something to make people watch like a 2 hours fight, 3 hours fight. Nobody want to watch that, right? Because what's really gonna be interesting is gonna be like 15 minutes of the fight.
Yeah.
The rest is gonna be just like not even touching each other. So that's how I see nowadays.
Absolutely. And Chael Sonnen's Submission Underground on UFC Fight Pass. We had Mason Fowler, who's the heavyweight champion. He beat Craig Jones twice, but that was in the specific rule set. And I guess similar to EBI, you're gonna start in the overtime with the back or with the arm, And so this would not be your favorite either. Or have you watched any of the Chael Sonnen Submission Underground?
No, I watched some, but I don't know the rules. Being honest, like I don't remember how is the rule set, but I watched some fights. But yeah, the ones that when it goes to overtime and start on the position, like you pick the position that you want to start. I don't like this, like I said about the EBI rules. So but it's something entertaining. People like to watch, but I just don't. I like to watch too, but I just don't think that make a lot of sense.
Absolutely. So let's talk some MMA. It's very exciting to see you jumping into MMA right in your prime. I think you're 30 or 31, right?
31.
So still right in your prime for a heavyweight. As you know, heavyweights can go to 41, 45. So you have a lot of time left. You're going to be a very exciting addition. So the question I have for you is this. Have you been a fan of MMA for as long as jiu-jitsu? Did you watch the old Vale Tudo when you were a child, or you're not as much of a knowledgeable fan about MMA?
Oh man, I always love it to watch. I remember I used to watch like Pride VHS,
yes,
right, or with my dad. So the old fights, I remember watching like Minotauro, Dan Henderson, all these guys on Pride, Arona. So I have been always a fan of MMA, especially the back in the day, the Asian events, right? Like Pride and the different rule sets. So I always been a big fan. And then I started jiu-jitsu a little bit like later.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
And then...
sorry to interrupt you. So let me ask you, in the United States, a lot of kids have a punching bag. You know what the punching bag is, where you practice your boxing. But in Brazil, I think not so much. Did you have any punching bag or any punching practice when you were a kid, or karate or anything?
Not really. The punching bag was in the street, because in Brazil, you always playing outside, so you fight a lot in the streets. So I think that was the way to train.
So you did have some street fights. I guess most guys in Brazil, right, have that.
Yeah, but as a kid, right? Not something serious, but like when you play ball in the street, so it's something that you always end up fighting. But as a kid, it wasn't even real. You're fighting like 3 minutes later, you're playing again with the same guy that
right,
you fought.
Right, exactly. Not the most intense fights. All right, so let's talk MMA. In MMA, you have the skill sets. You have the striking, which can be one guy can have good hands for boxing, one guy can have only good kicks, one guy can have both good hands kicks, one guy can have more high kicks, one guy has better leg kicks. So striking, you have various different subsets in the skill set of striking. And then you have wrestling. We all know the United States has like the best reputation for the most young men participating in wrestling in junior high school and college. Not so much in Brazil, although I think it's starting to become more prevalent. But one of the things that we see sometimes in a lot of the Brazilian fighters, at least maybe 10, 15 years ago, I think now it's improving, of course, but 10, 15 years ago, you would see a lot of Brazilian fighters have good jiu-jitsu, have not so good hands, and not so good wrestling. And in the early days of the sport, this was enough. Because the Brazilians, you guys have the toughness, you know the jiu-jitsu, you know fighting. But now you see, if you come into MMA and you don't have, and you have one skill set that you're great and two skill sets that you're not very good, this is not good enough. So may I ask, how are you doing with your training in striking and training in wrestling?
Yeah, I think you said it. You said perfect. So that is it. Nowadays is too complex to complete the sport. So if you go there just with one skill set, it's not gonna be enough, right? So, and that's why I want to be like a complete fighter. That's why I'm training so much, and like all my coach, I have like the best coaches. So my jiu-jitsu, I keep training with my master Lil Vieira. That I've been training with him like over 10 years. And my striking, I'm training with my Muay Thai with my master Catel Cubes. So he's a great, he's a legend on the sport too. The wrestling, I train with Stevie Moko. So man, he's like one of the biggest names in the wrestling heavyweight history of USA.
Yes, we had him on our show. We had Coach Steve Moko on. So that means you must be training at American Top Team.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a great conditioning coach too, Diego Lacerda, that's helping me a lot with the explosion and everything. So these guys, and of course, Kona Silveira, the head coach of American Top Team. So these are my main coaches, but of course, I have like a lot of other coaches in the gym and a lot of good training partners. So, like I'm training with these guys. So for sure, I'm training with the best, and I'm trying to get like everything, get better in everything. Jiu-jitsu, of course, wrestling, striking, and of course the condition is really important as well. So I'm making sure that I'm not gonna be one of those guys just one with skill set. So I'm ready to fight, to strike if I have to grapple, and of course to do some wrestling, cage it, like fight. So I'm ready for anything. If I can submit in like in the first minute of the fight, great, perfect word, right?
Right.
But if I have to brawl and fight for 15 minutes, I'm ready for that too.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent. And I interviewed Conan at a live event about a year ago, and I remember watching him many years ago when he fought. I think he's about 50 years old. Tell me the truth. Is there ever a time, if Conan feels good, he jumps in to do the training with you young guys? Or is that not happening anymore?
No, I never seen his training. He always there, like helping us and giving, like being the coach, right? But not training. But he always there. But I feel in his eyes when you see him, especially when the heavyweights are going at it. He's kind of like the eyes kind of like shining, like he wants to jump in and train. But he's more like being the coach and trying to help. Not just being a training partner, but being a coach and watching every day and being there. So
absolutely,
it's a different way now.
And that makes sense because you have to be smart. I was reading one of the Gracies made a comment. Someone's asking, should every top teacher in the school have to train with his students, even if he's 50 years old or 60? And the Gracie brothers said, it doesn't make sense. He said, if you're 55 or you're 60 years old and you're going to go train every day or even twice a week with your students, then you're going to be in a wheelchair when you're 65 years old. And what's the point in that? So it makes sense, But yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. The enthusiasm is there because he was a heavyweight, and I know he's excited. And the knowledge he has also in heavyweight MMA. Such a great team with Conan and Steve Moko and all the great people there, man. That's a great school. And I remember that started out as Brazilian top team. First it was Carlson Gracie team, and then some of the guys left and they became Brazilian top team, and then from there, American top team. So I remember the history from that, and a lot of great students. So let's look at some of the really good Brazilian UFC fighters over the years that did manage to improve their skill set. You have Vai Cavallo, Fabricio Verdum, of course, as heavyweight. He ended up learning a little bit of wrestling, but was most important is his striking became very good. And he's a tall guy like yourself. And when he had the two skill sets, and a little bit of the third, that worked out. And he's a UFC heavyweight champion and a great fighter. Also, you have Damian Maia. And I think that was one of the most impressive things. If you remember 15 years ago when Damian Maia, he was in the higher weight with Anderson. That fight was not so good for Damian because A, Anderson is much bigger than him. B, Damian only had jiu-jitsu. And that fight, people are upset because Damian's on the ground, butt scooting, and Anderson doesn't want to be on the ground. But from that, Damian really learned his wrestling, and he really made a difference. Once Damian had the wrestling with the jiu-jitsu, he had an amazing career, so close to being champion. If he would have had an opportunity earlier, he probably would have been a UFC champion. But obviously, all the skill sets are good as long as you get one of them along with jiu-jitsu. But if you get two of them, then absolutely you could be unstoppable. Do you look at a style like a Damian Maia or a Fabricio Verdum, and also like a Gilbert Burns now? Look at Gilbert Burns as well, I think is maybe a great example. Are these some of the guys that you look at that perhaps you would think your skill set could be similar, or do you look at other guys, or maybe one or two of these guys more than the other?
Yeah, I think a mix of all of those, right? So wrestling with jiu-jitsu like Damian used, it's great, but of course the striking with jiu-jitsu of Fabrício Verdun is great too. So you forgot to mention Charles Oliveira, right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
he's like a jiu-jitsu guy too, but he's like being really complete. Another one that I like to always is a big inspiration for me. It's Cara de Sapato, Antonio Carlos, because this guy, we used to fight together. Now he's a MMA fighter, complete MMA fighter,
Yes.
just won the PFL. So
$1 million.
it's
Yep.
yeah, $1 million baby now him. So it's great to watch these guys. They are really complete and doing good, but they came from the jiu-jitsu background and made it in MMA. So it's always good to have these examples to follow.
Absolutely. And obviously wrestling is the most similar to jiu-jitsu more than striking, and
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, if you want to use your jiu-jitsu, you need to take the fight to the ground. So how are you going to do that? Or you knock down your opponent, or you're taking him down. So the wrestling is the easiest way to use the jiu-jitsu. So if you don't have the wrestling, doesn't matter if your jiu-jitsu is good, you're not going to be able to use it, right?
Exactly. And so that's why I'm sure you're getting some great training with Steve Moko. Steve, I think, is still maybe 35 or 38 years old. Will he jump in sometimes? I think he will with the students, right?
Man, Stevie Moko is the one that is the most animal that I've seen in my life.
I bet.
Sometimes he goes there and he still beats every single one in the gym.
Nice.
Like, no joke. So I get beat up a lot by him.
It's good. It makes you stronger, right? Because they say iron sharpens iron. And yeah, his wrestling is going to be better probably than everyone in the heavyweight division, probably anywhere, whether it's ONE or UFC. So if you can start to do better with Steve Moko, it's going to put you in a very good position, I think, regardless of which MMA organization you're in.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Training with him gives me a lot of confidence because I know no one I'm fighting is going to have like great wrestling, great defense as him. So definitely it's something that gives me a lot of confidence.
Absolutely, it should. It definitely should. Let's talk about weight. Normally, when you fight, I think you're familiar with American weights. You're like normally what 235 pounds, something like this.
No, man, 250.
Oh wow, I didn't know you were that big. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
obviously you're going to be heavyweight. There's no thought to fight
yeah.
in like okay, and so for MMA. What do you expect if it's not a secret? If it's a secret, of course, you don't have to tell us. But what do you expect maybe the weight you're going to weigh in when you fight MMA is? Or do you think maybe it's going to be one time 235, one time 255? or do you have a plan on that
About my weight for the fight,
for MMA fights? Yeah.
man, the weight that I used to fight jiu-jitsu and I'm now today, did fight today. Even if I don't train for 2 months, I'm always 250, no matter what.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So I don't change. I feel good. If I'm over like I'm 255, 260, I feel a little bit slower,
Hmm.
so I don't like. And if I get too light, I feel like no, I'm getting skinny, so I feel like just to watch the scale going lower and lower, I feel weak already. So
Right.
it's 250, it's something that I like. Is on point for me.
That
One
make
time Leo told me, no, yeah, you can make 205. I said, man, you're crazy.
no. When was the last time you were 205? Like 20 years ago, or not that long, but right, 15
Yeah,
years ago
like
maybe.
205, maybe 15 years ago,
Yeah.
something like.
No
I
need.
yeah, I used to fight like when I was 18 years old, like medium heavy in jiu-jitsu. So no way.
Yeah, not going to happen. Makes sense. So right now, I believe the one champion is still Arjan Buller, the Canadian from India, right?
Yes.
And we had him on our show, and I think he was a decorated wrestler. I think he won a medal, I think, in Olympics for Canada. And nice guy. I had him on the show here also about 6 months ago. Very nice guy, respectful guy. Obviously, this is not going to be your first fight, but if he's still there, this will be possibly an opponent. What would you think of a matchup with him?
Yeah, like you said, it's not something that's gonna happen for me now. I'm gonna have my second fight in 2 days, and he's the champion. So, but of course, it's something that if I keep doing good, keep winning, eventually they're gonna give me a chance to fight for the belt. But of course, he's a great guy, but it's not something that I'm thinking too much about right now
Right.
because my only focus is on my next fight. It's on King, right?
Hmm.
So I like to take it step by step, day by day. So I don't like to think too much about the future. But he's one of the best of the world for sure. He has the belt he deserves. He did a great fight. The last fight, that's one when he earned the belt. So he's really good. One of the best, 100%.
Absolutely. So you've had one MMA fight so far. I think you did win that, and you say you have another. I didn't know you had another one scheduled 2 days from now. Who is your opponent again?
King won, right? The guy that knocked out Amir Al-Kibaba.
Oh, wow.
You know who's,
I think I do.
you remember?
I believe
Yeah,
yes.
so yeah, he's supposed to fight Arjan for the belt, but then something happened. He got hurt, and then they scheduled us to fight. So I'm here in Singapore at the hotel actually. So today is Wednesday, so I'm fighting Friday.
That's fantastic. Well, I appreciate that you came on the show here, man. I wish you luck. I'm sure you're excited, and you don't have to worry about the weight cutting. And so you're
Yeah, no.
right. Enjoy yourself, and you're getting ready. And in Singapore, did you have anyone from Brazil or from Florida that could come with you? Obviously, maybe some of your coaches at ATT. Who's there with you in Singapore?
Actually, who is with me right now is my master Leonardo Vieira, my jiu-jitsu coach.
Hmm.
So he came here with me in the first fight. So he's here again. We are on a mission.
Fantastic. Well, I tell you, man, I'm excited about what you can do, especially with the wrestling with Steve Moko. Your jiu-jitsu was great. You're a big young man. You're athletic. You always had great movement. People are going to be afraid to be on the ground with you. With the wrestling, you can take them there. I think you're getting your hands together, and if you do, you have a good chance, I think, of being a one championship heavyweight champion in a great future, man. So I'm excited about what you bring. And what's the best place for people to support you on social media? Which is the one that you look most like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter?
Thank you so much, and I wish that too. I wish I can use everything that you said, and I can make it happen. So, and yeah, social media, I think Instagram nowadays is the best way to find myself and to interact with me. So I don't use too much Twitter, so Instagram is the best way for sure.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Marcus Buchecha Almeida. Huge respect to you, and I'm looking forward to you having a great career in MMA, and hopefully we talk again soon down the line.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here in the show with you guys. So I hope I can see you guys again here.
Definitely. Thanks again, brother. Have a great night or a great day there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was the world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Marcus Buchecha Almeida. Serious force. I didn't even know he was there, Dr. Adam Rorta at ATT. If he's got...
I mean, that's crazy just for him to team up with them, and it's just going to be fireworks.
Oh man, he is going to be a force, and right in the heavyweight division right now, even in the UFC, is not really that deep. And so, you know, in reality, if Buchecha would come to the UFC, immediately people would be taking notice because he's just a really good athlete. I mean, he fought Gordon Ryan to a standstill.
Right.
And Gordon usually smokes people.
Right.
And this was like dead even. Gordon just edged him.
I mean, it's going to be insane just watching him here progress. And like you said, it's not very deep in even the UFC with the heavyweights. And
right.
Sometimes with the light heavyweights and heavyweights, I'm giving it more to Bellator.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
this is going to be interesting watching him progress and see where he goes here.
Absolutely. And at 31 at heavyweight, you're right in your prime.
Right.
And he's probably got 2 or 3 more years of his prime, and then after that, he's still going to be amazing just right after his prime. So I think he's got a great career ahead of him. Very nice guy, respectful young man, and an amazing athlete.
One hundo.
Yep.
Before we hop into our next guest, Colin, I want to go ahead and talk to everybody out here that's tuning in on Fight TV or the Hannibal TV. Go to the other side and check it out. Make sure to follow us on the Hannibal TV on Facebook. You can search us in the search bar, MMA Power Hour. Follow our social media channels. Our website is temporarily down for revamping. And for those of you catching us on the Hannibal TV, make sure to go on over to Fight TV. It's FITE.tv. And in the search bar, just put in MMA Power Hour. You'll see us right there. And make sure to subscribe.
Yes.
Hit us up every Tuesday night, same time.
Same time, same channel. As our good friends in Scotland would say, subscribe.
Yep.
Please.
Subscribe. And thank you in advance for all the likes, comments, and shares. And Colin, I do believe we have our next guest coming in here, and the man of the hour. I'm not sure if we can hear him yet.
Well, I see him. King, can you hear me?
Hey, guys.
Gotcha. We got, hey, guys.
Guys, can you hear?
Yep, we're hearing you. A little bit of interference, but we're going to see if we can figure out what's going on. But we do have the King of Connecticut, Matthew Granahan, former MMA fighter, former collegiate wrestler, catch wrestler, all around charismatic, amazing guy, commentator, MC, host of fights all around the world, and a good personal friend of Dan the Beast Severn and Erik the Viking Paulson. So we know that they're not friends with people that aren't legit. So Matthew, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, so you're good. Excellent. So, Matthew Granahan, I'm excited to talk to you. You've been a friend of mine for 4.5 years. You're the King of Connecticut, but you're over there in South Kakalaki, which is South Carolina. Reminds me of an old movie from like 60 years ago, a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. Remember that one? I think it had Boris Karloff or something. So you were the Connecticut Yankee, but now you're pretty much assimilated over there in the South, except you still don't have a Southern drawl. That's probably not going to happen, is it?
Not at this age. I'm actually.
Bless you.
I'm actually in Florida now. I'm still in South Carolina, but I'm in Florida.
Yep.
As we speak right now, I'm in. I just came back from a big dinner, pigged out with Mazza, who's in the background here.
There he is.
How are you?
Larry Mazza, how are you? It's an honor to meet you, my friend.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. But I don't want to interrupt. Do what you got to do.
Sounds good.
No, yeah, I want guys to have a chance to talk to Larry and his buddy, who's also staying with us at the house. Larry has got a great background in martial arts, as well as just an amazing story of his life in Cosa Nostra, and
Yes.
he and his friend have a new show coming out with Mob TV that they were just telling me about. I'm staying at Larry's house. I've been here the last couple of days. We're heading to Boca Raton tomorrow, South Florida.
Nice.
We're outside because I work for a Berman Law Group now, which is the preeminent attorneys in the Southeast. We can actually take cases in all 50 states, and they're personal injury attorneys. But I also work for the Berman Team, which is their sports charity. Pretty awesome facility down there.
Cool.
And in January, we're launching the Berman Team podcast, which we're working with Value. We were just over with Valuetainment, actually helping Valuetainment to get into another facility, a larger facility. And I've interviewed Larry. Larry's a good friend of mine. I've interviewed him for the Hannibal TV. I know you guys are also on the Hannibal TV. And I've interviewed him for a few other podcast channels as well. But he's our guest for the Berman Team podcast, one of our guests tomorrow. So Larry and I are driving down there. These episodes are going to be put in the can. They'll be the podcast will begin in January of 2022, coming up here. And Larry just did Valuetainment. He did Vlad TV, which is downloads.
Big time.
His value, that was his Vlad TV. His Valuetainment one is approaching 1 million. He's got an amazing story from his life in the mob in Cosa Nostra, but also so much great history that he has in martial arts. I was over training with him this morning at his gym. He's got a great gym here. Oh, thank you, brother. Cheers. Salute. Absolutely.
Cheers, guys.
Awesome.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Salute and Merry Christmas.
Absolutely to you guys too. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, those are big sources. Valuetainment and Vlad, man, millions of people catching them. We're hoping to catch some of those numbers one day, but we appreciate you jumping on and Larry Mazza there because he's got an amazing story, and you're working there with him. It sounds like a great project, and Florida's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
It's a great place where you have a right. You don't have to wear a face diaper, and no one's forcing you to stick anything into your body. I like Florida a lot. So
absolutely, it's one of the last somewhat liberty here in the United States.
Absolutely, a land where a man can be a man, and whatever the hell that means, but it definitely happens in Florida. That I can tell you. Good stuff. So Matthew Granahan, you got the great shirt CSW, and CSW that stands for what? Combat Sambo and Wrestling. Is that it?
No, it actually stands for Combat Submission Wrestling, and
there we go. I knew
Erik
that.
gave me this. Erik Paulson gave me this last week. I was out in California, in Orange County, staying with Erik to do this project. So Erik reached out to me a few weeks back, and he said, "I want to do something with you for the holidays," and we had done a book together years ago, History of American Submission Wrestling, and the book went through 2 prints, and we went through thousands of copies, and we had some copies left. And he said, "Look, I want to do something cool for the holidays, for fun, for folks, and get folks caught up." And the book was an homage to the men that came before us in grappling. My mentor and coach, Billy Wicks, did one of the forewords. Gene LaBelle, who I know you're close to, Colin, did
my friend.
the other forward. And we had several of the legends from catch wrestling have passed on. Billy Wicks, my mentor, passed away.
Carl Gotch
back in 2000. And Frankie Kane. We have Dick Cardinal passed away recently. Red Bastine passed away. All guys that I interviewed for the book. So it's a pretty amazing what we did out there. You're going to get hours of knowledge and footage from Erik and I, both telling stories, talking about history, talking about how the book came about, and then giving you techniques. That shows some of the techniques that I learned from Billy Wicks in this download. He shows some of the stuff, and directly we have video from Yuri Nakamura, who was one of Erik's mentors in Shuto. So it's an amazing history. This kind of gets it caught up. Erik and I say in the opener there that it was 14 years ago that we started the book, and then it took a couple of years to write it. So it's a retrospective. It's a great product. It's not available yet. Erik is actually producing a shirt for the book, and it should be available by this coming weekend. So I'm really excited about it. It's an awesome product for Christmas, for the holidays, for the grappler in your life.
Without a doubt. And one thing I can tell you is Erik, having trained not only with Nakamura, trained with Jean LaBelle, also trained with Rickson Gracie, Jean-Jacques Machado. He's got the jiu-jitsu and the catch wrestling, and I know he respects both. Both are similar but different. One of the coolest things about the catch wrestling, with it being not as well known nowadays as jiu-jitsu, although it started before that, but a lot of times if you're a jiu-jitsu guy, and there's so many people out there now that are since the advent of the UFC with the Gracies, if you look at a book like this, you can see some catch wrestling moves that you can go in and shock the hell out of your jiu-jitsu brothers in your jiu-jitsu class. And I remember I used to do that sometimes, and people would be like, what the hell is that? And I'd say I saw it from Erik Paulson in a video, and so there's some really good stuff. You guys can learn some unique finishing holds. Back in the early days, they're calling them like concession holds, I think it started out, back in the days of the carnies and the hookers. And I think how it started hundreds of years ago was they had these guys that were in the circus or at other events that were tough guys that knew these concession holds, submission holds, joint manipulations, literally in the 1800s. And they'd say, okay, if you can go a couple minutes with this guy, you win $20, which is like $1,000 today, or $50. And then I think, but he had to pay $2 for the opportunity. And virtually no one would be able to do anything against a guy once they felt that their arm was about to break off, or their wrist, or their elbow, or their ankle, or their knee. I know that Erik Paulson said that a submission, the human body is just a submission waiting to happen, or a submission hold waiting to happen. So, yeah, it's got amazing stuff, and have Jean LaBelle involved and yourself involved. And I tell you, Matt, one thing I like about you is you're a guy that has so many irons and so many fires, and you always have, and I think for the last 15 years that you've been in the MMA, and catch wrestling circles, you've always hustled, and I admire that. Did that come natural to you? Were you a guy in your 20s and 30s that was always aware that you got to have irons in many different fires, or did you not learn that quite that young?
Yeah, you know what it is with me is when I get interested in something, I always try to figure out how to make it kind of into a business. And the whole way that this book came about, and Erik and I talk about this in the syllabus, is I was out there in Orange County in Fullerton for work, and started training there at CSW. And there's another guy, Matt Covan, from Billy Wick's student that was out there too. And Erik and I just went out to this barbecue place for some beers, hanging out, and came up with this idea for this book. Because he goes, your stuff is a lot similar with mine. You got this, the origins of your moves. And we're talking about Bill Kimura. So we came up with the idea organically to write this book. But I've always had different synergies and different projects. I mean, I only competed in MMA because I was on a severance from my company. I had always done grappling and judo. And one of the things I talk about with this book is it covered all grappling history, not just catch wrestling. We get into the real history and roots of jiu-jitsu. And Mitsuyu Maeda, who was a competitive catch wrestler, and we chronicle his catch wrestling lineage and his matches, who taught the Gracies. We talk about judo, and I started competing in judo when I was wrestling in Bakari Judo Danbury with other wrestlers. And we used to dominate in judo as big, strong wrestlers because we could do leg attacks from the feet, and they couldn't defend against us. And one of the things that Erik and I talk about in the syllabus is, in order to combat that for sport judo, they made it illegal to put your hand on the legs in a standing position.
No, man.
Because we went in there and we were doing short blast doubles. I call it a short blast double. I could drop you down. I could take your legs out from under you. As a judo guy, these guys were so used to those upper body throws, and that change evolved sport judo. So wrestling has always been a very dominant sport. We talk about luta livre as BJJ and the differences and how luta came about. We talk about the history of jiu-jitsu. We get into the history of sambo. We talk about in the book something really interesting is you, Colin, as a grappler and a historian in the early UFCs, like when Ken Shamrock fought Pat Smith, he was booed when he went for that leg lock and got that leg lock.
Right.
Reason is there were so many BJJ guys out there, and what Erik and I talk about is back in the day, if we were going into these gyms and doing leg locks, you're getting kicked out. You know, you couldn't do that in jiu-jitsu. And now jiu-jitsu leg locks with Donaher.
Yep.
Great guys, you know, that are Gordon Ryan, who I had the pleasure of meeting and chatting with when he was doing his whole feud with Curran Jacobs.
Right.
I was trying to get Curran that match with him. Great leg locker. So it's all roots of the same tree. And what people don't understand about American wrestling, that us as wrestlers, and I always call myself a dirty wrestler, is before the 1930s, and when Hugo Optoplik changed the rules of American wrestling, you had arm locks, you had neck cranks, you had choke pins, all of these submissions in wrestling. Where did they go? And I talk in the syllabus with Erik. They never left. We learned them from our coaches. We learned dirty wrestling, you know, from our coaches. And that's why I think people are going to love this syllabus, because it's hours of Erik and I having these discussions, telling stories, honoring the grapplers of the past, and it's going to make an incredible gift. And Erik's putting together this killer T-shirt. It's not Erik gave me this T-shirt. He's putting together another T-shirt that you can purchase with this holiday package. So it's ErikPaulson, ErikPaulson.com. A lot of people know his store, the Combat Submission Wrestling store, and the product should be available by this weekend. So we're really, really, really excited about it.
Absolutely, I am as well. I endorse that. I'll be getting a shirt myself and the book of the addendum for sure. Now I see Larry Mazza there, and I'm hoping maybe Larry has a second. Larry, I'd love to have your thought, if Matthew wouldn't mind. I don't think he would. What's your thought about MMA? You've been a long-time martial artist. Did you start becoming aware of the UFC right when it started in 1993, or when were you aware of it?
Well, you know, I was aware of it, but I was in prison. So
Right.
while it was really catching fire, I was away, so I really couldn't follow it that much. We don't have that much TV and stuff like that.
Right.
But when I was in kickboxing, it was PKA.
Right, I remember.
There was nothing like right. It was from the waist up. You couldn't lead with a backhand. There were no elbows.
You had a certain amount of kick requirements per round, right? Yep.
Yeah. When I started watching the MMA, it was like, to me, it was like fights I saw in Brooklyn.
Right.
That there was, you know, no holds. But then when I got out and I came back to Florida, I reconnected with Donnie Hare and Donnie Wilson. And they were pure martial artists, but now they were into MMA. Yeah. So I started learning a little bit about it. And other guys like Phil Collins and some really good instructors. But now don't forget, I was also in my 40s.
Right.
So
Right. It wasn't the time had
yeah,
passed for you to compete, but you definitely were excited about it.
that,
Don Wilson, also a great guy. I met him several times down the Dragon Wilson,
yeah,
and he was a
He
commentator
yeah,
there.
opened up. Don Wilson opened up some of
yeah.
Larry's gyms.
2 of our gyms. He came from California, and he did some exhibition bouts and he did some seminars. So we had a good run. I turned out to be a better instructor than fighter. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I had good classes, and uh, I was very I was really teaching, and I took some things I learned from Louis Neglia, some things I learned from, Donnie, the 2 Donnies,
Yep.
and I sort of made my own little system where it was girl friendly also, where
Good.
they didn't have to slug it on the ring and things like that, but they got the benefits of not only the health and fitness, but also self defense. They could protect themselves
Absolutely.
realistically.
Absolutely. And were the
So
school
yeah.
was the school called Larry Mazza Martial Arts, or and does it still exist, or what was?
No, I used. When I first came home, I just went by my first and middle name. So it was Lawrence Michael Karate Academy, Martial Arts Karate Academy.
Very cool.
And I built up a really good following. And I did a lot of small classes. I did some big classes, some more one-on-one with 2 or 3 people, 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
I had strict rules about attendance. You had to show up. If you didn't show up without calling and letting me know, I just cancel you out of the class.
Good.
Because, as you know, students come to rely on each other.
Yes.
If if I have a night set up where there's going to be some sparring, and Matt's there, and I don't show up, what is he going to do? Spar with a girl or some
Or no one.
16-year-old kid?
Right.
So you start relying on the other students, and I had some old-fashioned rules about being on time, and what I did, cleaning the dojo afterwards. A lot of that's not done anymore.
Right, I like it. It's the old school stuff, the stuff that us Generation X and baby boomers
Yeah.
did, and I think stuff that holds true today. That is what really, truly being a martial artist and a good man is about, and so I respect that a lot. Did you find that you were entertained by the fights? Were there ever any times where you were buying the UFC pay-per-views, or do you still do that?
Well, no, I didn't buy too many, but there were a few that I went out to a local place that, maybe a sports bar and watched them. But I got to be honest with you. I like the science of fighting more than that all-out brawl. I go back to guys like, I'll take boxing. Sugar Ray, Duran,
Sure.
all those guys, they didn't want to get hit. They practice some defense.
Right, like Roy
It
Jones.
seems like the MMA. Roy Jones. I met him. He was in Tampa. He came to my gym.
That's right. He's a
I got
Floridian.
an autographed picture with him.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's a Tampa guy. But guys like that, like even Muhammad Ali, even though that rope-a-dope thing probably turned out to be a bad thing for him, he utilized that.
Yeah.
Where he wasn't getting hit, he came back and beat you.
Right.
Where I watched MMA, and sometimes the guy's on the floor for 3 minutes in a hold.
Yep.
And it just watching it that didn't turn me on.
And it's funny. It's funny when Larry says that, Colin, because I came from kind of the opposite. Because I came from wrestling and grappling. So for me, I never really was a fan of Bruce Lee or a fan of karate or a fan of martial arts or any of that. I boxed a little bit growing up, but I mainly was a wrestler, and then got into judo and the grappling side. So when I got into it, it was wrestling centric. It's interesting too, if you want to talk about the history of the UFS. Don the Dragon Wilson, many people forget, was a commentator for the early UFCs.
Several of them, yes.
For many of them.
Yes.
Several of them. And you know who commentated the very first one? Was
Jim Brown,
Bill Superfoot Wallace.
Bill Superfoot Wallace, Jim Brown, and Kathy Long.
Wallace.
Yep.
Yeah. But I point to Bill Superfoot Wallace because he, and he has an interesting take on it. And I don't know if anyone's watched his video on his experience. And Eric and I get into all this in the syllabus. I mean, it's amazing, Colin. I mean, it's hours of information. And if you're a young grappler that doesn't know this history, man, this product is going to watch it 5 or 6 times to absorb all the information that we give
Beautiful.
in this thing.
And is that video? Is that like a DVD or something you can download with the book that's not written? Okay.
So here's the way it works, Colin. The product's going to be available by this weekend, and it's going to include a T-shirt, a book, and the download, all in that. And the download is hours of content. And I mean, when I say Erik and I blew each other away after we did it, we said, "My God!" And we didn't. That was before we even got into doing the techniques. We were like, "My God!" We just gave them the keys to the kingdom with all this knowledge and all this history that we dropped.
Absolutely, man. I'm really excited about it. Let me ask both of you the same question here, and let me start. We'll start with Larry. So obviously, when Evander Holyfield comes back and he's 60 years old and he shouldn't have been cleared to fight, nobody liked that. Nobody cheered for that. I hated that. That sucked. It was a fight that 20 years ago, Evander would have beaten Vitor Belfort in probably 8 seconds. And so no one likes that. But if you're talking about someone like a Mike Tyson, and he and Roy Jones put on a hell of a fight, and that was an exhibition. And they're both, one is 55 years old and 53 years old, which are not that old. Larry, you personally, if you're talking about Mike and you're talking about someone like Roy Jones, who is still healthy, their head is fine, their conditioning is great, are you okay with these guys still taking a few fights, or are you against it?
Well, I would say this. First of all, they got to be in shape. They got to prove themselves to some extent. Obviously, the fight's got to be shortened. Maybe the rounds are a little shorter. Maybe they go back to 16-ounce gloves like in the real old days.
Right.
You know, and it's still a good, entertaining event, and it's still it could be a good fight. I think you just have to change the rules a little bit.
Right.
You know, and I never want to see an old guy like him with a young up-and-coming guy that's a superstar.
No.
You know, that's – yeah. So, no, the way they're doing it with a few different rules maybe, like I said, I think the gloves being bigger would be important. And obviously, they got to pass the health end of it.
Right.
And Evander did, and Colin, Evander didn't, and that was disgusting because Evander has balance issues. He's got a lot of severe CTE issues. He should not have been in that fight.
Yeah.
I mean, that was disgusting.
Yeah, I agree.
That was absolutely disgusting. But let's talk about let's talk about another example. Okay.
Tell me.
You all know Butterbean. He's
Yes.
on the channel. Butterbean has a show here with watch when he fought Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes put on a clinic. Larry Holmes was at 53, I think, and Butterbean was in his prime.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I mean, I go both sides on that. But we want to bring in another gentleman too that's here. Is Frank to talk about a project that he and Larry are doing. Unless you guys have any other questions for me, I pretty much covered everything that.
Yeah,
Okay, don't forget he has more short.
no problem. You can bring Frank in, but a quick question for you, Matt, and in fact, all three of you can answer this. Can Mike Tyson beat both of the blonde-haired social influencers, Jake and Logan Paul, or not?
I don't know, man. I say when you ask me anything, I say only time will tell.
I don't think those guys handle Mike Tyson's combinations.
I agree.
If he's got anything like the old days, they're not going to be able to handle that.
I agree.
I'm going to say they can't hurt him.
I agree.
I need to say something though, Colin, because you're a fight historian, and I think a lot of people forget this. Just like Chuck Liddell when he came back and fought Tito.
Right.
People forget. They think of the Mike Tyson that was getting those quick flash knockouts. Before Mike Tyson made his comeback, I want you all to watch his last fight against, it was McNulty, I think.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be a can. It was supposed to be a can, and Tyson got KO'd.
Yeah.
So with Mike Tyson, there's a lot of that fantasy kind of, Superman kind of thing. He's not. I say these guys are young, they're training hard. You never know.
Yeah. Understood. Frank, do you have an opinion on that against Jake Paul, against Logan Paul for Mike Tyson?
How you doing?
Good to see you.
I think that the two brothers, they're in shape. The social media brothers. And they do have wins. They could hold out power. That if he unleashes the power of a little bit of the old Tyson, going to be a good thing to watch.
Yeah, I think so.
They're cocky. Again, I don't knock anybody's hustle. They're getting into this game from a different angle, and I really would like to see them get beat up. To be honest with you.
Yeah, so would I.
That makes it a great show.
Yeah.
That's what's making this a great show. Is I think these guys, these kids are heels. I mean, they know how to play the game because it's a business.
Yeah, they really do. They do. My co-host, Dr. Adam Rorty, here is definitive on his thought on that. Not that you guys aren't, because you say what you feel, but Dr. Adam Rorty feels the guy who hasn't been winning, the brother who hasn't been winning, Logan Paul, gets beat by Mike Tyson, but the brother who has been winning, Jake Paul, beats Mike Tyson. So that's an interesting spin on it. My feeling is Mike beats both of them. If it's an exhibition and it doesn't mean anything, and Mike, he said he likes these kids, if he goes out there and he doesn't want to hurt these kids, then I think who knows. But if it's for real and Mike can find something within him not to like these kids, then I think he could smash the crap out of those Paul brothers. But we may be seeing it's unfortunate that he's going. It looks like he's getting something set with the lesser talented brother first, which is a little disappointing. But my thought is if he smashes and knocks the shit out of Logan Paul, then Jake Paul can come in and try to get revenge, and then he could be knocked out as well. So I like it. I mean, I don't think any of us ever thought we'd see almost like a senior citizens league in boxing, but you got guys like Mike Tyson, who better to do it. So let's jump in though. Frank, tell us, there we go. That's the stance. Looking good, Larry. Looking very good. Frank, tell us about the project, Frank, that you have going with Larry, and a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. Well, me and Larry go back about 35 years from the old days in Brooklyn. We got in trouble.
I'll say.
Putting it mildly. And, we had to go away. And he went his way, I went my way, different prisons and stuff. And I would read books, aliens, Bigfoot, spirits, Loch Ness Monster, any type of myth. And I was always fascinated by it. And back in 1993, I was sent to Lewisburg Penitentiary. And they put me in a cell with a guy named Paul Sheedy. And I knew him from before, but I really didn't hang out with him a lot. But when they put him in the cell now in this different prison, you become close. So he used to tell me all the time that he saw a UFO when he was a kid. So I've been hearing about this UFO story for a long time. And he saw that I was fascinated reading these books. And 30 years ago, we were in our cell. And I was on the top bunk, he was on the bottom bunk. And I flipped my mattress up. And I looked down at him because he was looking up at me. And I said, listen, if we ever get out, we're going to do a show where we investigate all types of myths and different ghosts. And we're going to film it and take the whole world on this adventure.
I like it.
And 30 years later, it's coming to light.
And one of them was martial arts.
And now, besides Paul being on the show with me, I have two other gentlemen on the show. Where again, we have 40 year history. And one guy's named John Gator, and the other one's name is Joseph Terranova. Now, Joseph Terranova, he's a jiu-jitsu practitioner. And I believe now he's a brown belt.
Cool.
But he also has black belts in 5 other styles. So he's been training since we were kids. I can go back to when we were in, elementary school. He was always going to the dojo and learning, and things just kept going and going and going. And then by the time when I went away, he was practicing jiu-jitsu. And I believe, I don't know if it's Henzo or Renzo.
Yep,
Henzo Gracie.
Gracie.
Yep.
Bessa was one of their students. His name was Mike Cordella. He has a dojo in Staten Island, New York. And Joe was training over there. Plus, he trained at another dojo called Tiger Showman.
Very much respect for them. Great school, Tiger Showman.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a funny story, even though it's going to veer off a little. Now, he's been telling me he does all these tournaments, and I see all the pictures with him with swords, with belts, with medals on this podium. So he's doing something called the Pan American. Did you ever hear of that?
Yeah. Yep.
That was a Pan American. That anything to do with Abu Dhabi and the Pan
Abu
American?
Dhabi
The
submission.
Pans.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
got to put it in
they're both
Pan
great
Am.
tournaments. The
Yeah.
the Pans and the Abu Dhabi. Yeah.
Okay. So
And Mike Cardella's brother, I'm almost positive, is Phil. I know Phil Cardella. Phil's from, but he has a school in Austin. Kamal's good buddies with him. We used to train with him out there. Phil Cardella.
Awesome. You mean Kamal Shalarus. Excellent. Great former UFC
Yeah.
fighter and Olympian from Iran. Also, we got 5 minutes left, guys, so so definitely let us know everything you want to continue, but I wanted to give you the time parameter so we weren't rude or abrupt because we have all the respect for you. But continue on. We've got about 5 minutes.
I'll make that a quick story now. So now it's the first time I go to one of his tournaments. So I walk in, I'm watching it, and I see kids fighting, girls fighting, all different age levels and belt levels. And it kind of got me hyped up. And then he came over and says, "Won't you sign up, just do this." So by the time I went and got an outfit, now I'm a big guy. They had extra large. So I squeezed myself in an extra large.
Awesome.
So let's get this now. I'm 300. I'm squeezed into an extra large shirt and pants, looking like Speedos, like from like some Eastern European beach.
Yep.
And by the time I got finished from signing the papers, I went from a beginner to blue belt.
Awesome.
A blue belt.
Immediately. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I went in there. They go, "How long you been doing, jiu-jitsu?" I was like, "I've been doing this for quite some time." So I never did it at all.
Right.
And
I love it.
Yeah, I never did it at all. I fought somebody. I just felt like I was fighting for my life.
Right.
Great.
But once this guy had his nuts on my forehead, I kind of like, I was like, oh, but it was an experience.
For sure. For sure.
know,
It
Can I
is.
ask you a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Quick. It goes back to the hypothetical, and I have arguments with some friends of mine.
Sure.
If Mayweather would have fought the what was his name?
Conor McGregor.
McGregor
Yeah.
with MMA rules, who would win?
I'd say McGregor all day, but remember now, if you're talking about McGregor now, he's a little bit compromised. Still, even now, I'd say McGregor, but back then, McGregor at his peak, absolutely, because of the skill
Yeah, the
set.
rules set up for Mayweather to win.
Yeah, in
I
boxing.
mean, if you watch that fight, I went and watched, and it was an exhibition.
Yeah.
It was just, he couldn't do the things that brought him to the high level of MMA in the ring that night.
Right.
And the other guy's able to avoid him. He doesn't have to worry about kicks or getting taken down.
Yep.
So, some of my pure boxing friends will say, Mayweather's the champ. He's this. He can't be beat. But anyway, I agree with you on that. All right.
I'm with you.
Thank you for letting me ask.
No, my pleasure, Larry. I appreciate you. Go ahead, Matt.
Colin, the only time I can tell you, my broadcast partner when I did Waco kickboxing for the show in Augusta, Georgia, was Merciless Ray Mercer, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to tell you, the only time that tell me if I'm wrong, because Colin, inside and out, the only time I can point to when a boxer came into MMA and won was when Ray Mercer knocked out Tim Sylvia.
Yeah, and to qualify that,
Tell me another.
exactly. Now, if you're looking at a boxer who really didn't have much time at all to train MMA, if anything, you're right. That was the example. Now, Clarissa Shields
I'm
trained
talking
for a
about
year.
a pure boxer.
A pure boxer bringing only boxing. Yeah. That was, and I remember a crazy fight. All respect to former UFC champ Tim Sylvia, and he was known for having good hands compared to MMA heavyweights 20 years ago. And he's 6'8". He was about 12 years younger than Ray Mercer, and 7 inches taller than him. But why he felt like it was an okay idea to exchange hands with Ray Mercer was, it was amazing. But yeah, he thought he was going to come in and show a little bit of razzle-dazzle with his reach, and Ray Mercer said, "We're going to play that with me," and stepped in and knocked him cold. And but it almost never happens because of the skill set in a real fight. And it's interesting because I have all respect for boxing. I had a great uncle years ago that boxed, a couple of them, and I watched boxing before MMA. But for the boxers to look at MMA fighters losing against the best boxers and laugh and say, "Oh, that MMA doesn't work," and this and that, blah, 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 they're kidding themselves because you're restricting the rule set for the guys that have multiple skill sets in fighting. and that's why these boxers don't want any part of it, and that's probably how it will continue. I mean, maybe one day, maybe if you find a boxer who's 23 years old or 25 in his peak, and he's got a set of iron cojones, and he says, you know what, I'm young, I did a little bit of wrestling maybe when I was younger, I got friends that know jiu-jitsu, let me try to jump in and show that I'm such a good athlete, then I can go from being a boxing champ and be a high-level MMA champ. But very rare, and we really haven't seen it. We really haven't seen it yet.
He's got to worry about those kicks. Those kicks
Yep.
coming at you, roundhouse,
Yep.
those spinning back kicks.
And leg
Yeah,
kicks.
So many angles. That
Yep.
get ready for.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I got to say, Colin, you know, Ray Mercer was a great dude because I actually, when we did the pre-show,
Yep.
I interviewed him in the ring. And it was impromptu because I said, look, you know, we got some time to kill. I'm going to get you in. And, you know, he did kickboxing, too, in Japan.
Yep.
And he told me, when he told me in the interview, he says, the fight that of all my boxing career, and he said, my entire fight career, the one that everybody talks about is when I knocked out Tim Sylvia. And I think that that's because Tim Sylvia had been UFC champion, and that's the only time that that's ever happened, and probably the only time it ever will happen.
Without a doubt, Matt.
You'll get a boxer straight from boxing.
Without a doubt. Sorry to interrupt you, Matt, but we got to wrap it up in 30 seconds. If you and I really appreciate you. Don't mean to interrupt you. You know I love you. You're a good friend of mine. Tell me in the last 30 seconds the best places that we can support all you guys for Frank's projects. Let us know where we can see it. And Matt, and if you can, 30 seconds so we can wrap it up. That would be great.
Okay. If people are on social media, go to Facebook and punch in Mobsters versus Monsters. That's our group. Hit the join button. I'll accept you, and then you can see all about us and watch some little clips. And we're coming out in 2022.
And for us, CSW store, ulson.com. Go to the CSW store. The product should be up by Saturday.
Absolutely, and everyone can find Larry Mazza easily, and we appreciate all you guys so much. Frank, Larry, Matt, Granahan, as always. Big respect to all you guys. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, brother. Merry Christmas.
To you too. Merry Christmas, gentlemen. To you too. Happy holidays. All right, that was a good one, Dr. Adam Rorta. You didn't even know that we were going to have Larry Mazza, the notorious and well-respected Cosa Nostra guy and martial artist, and Frank, and
that's awesome.
And Matthew. So Matthew Granahan always comes through. I see he's still watching there with Frank. We really appreciate you guys a lot.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate you guys a lot. Matt's a long-time, many-time guest, great friend of the show. Just so much fun having him on all the time. But, yeah, Colin, for everybody out there, why don't you give them the rundown on social media?
Yes, the run, and then we are 2 minutes away from our next guest, so we want to be ready for that, guys. So, rundown for social media, we have MMA Power Hour on
at MMA Power Hour on every platform.
On every platform.
I'm throwing this at Colin. He hasn't actually thrown this out and practiced.
No, I haven't. So that was, but I figured
this.
I'm gonna bite on it and try to wing it if I can.
Well, there's worse things to bite on. So
absolutely, that is for sure. At MMA Power Hour everywhere. Hannibal TV. Also, you can check us on his YouTube and on Facebook. Fight TV. FITE.TV. 4 million people having downloaded it. You don't even need to download it if you want to go on your laptop or desktop. FITE TV. Everything's free unless you want to order a pay-per-view, but if you order a pay-per-view anywhere, that's not free. The rest of the programming is, including our show.
You have to pay per view.
Right. If you're viewing something that's an event, then you're paying for the view.
We're free. Our show is free every week. You
That's
can catch
right.
us every week at 6 p.m. Pacific time. That's 9 p.m. Eastern.
Absolutely.
You guys are the best.
2-hour show, and that's not saying goodbye. That's not the peace sign. Although
Nope.
I guess it used to be this, and then it morphed to that. But yeah, 2-hour show from 6 to 8 every Tuesday. Anyway, we do not want to hold up our next guest. So if we're so used to doing Skype where we would do that wacky Skype dance. Remember,
Right,
Doctor?
right.
But now I guess we just wait to be able to see our guests. So if I can ask our engineers, Mike, are we looking just to see if Coach Oyama appears there, or can you see if he's there?
Okay, so we're waiting.
Okay, so you know what I can do, because he's one of the most successful coaches out there, and I know he's going to do it. We've had him on before, but just in case he's busy,
he's great about it.
yeah, maybe I should make sure that I remind Coach Oyama, and we'll do my regular dictation here. Hey,
Dictation
Coach.
while he's live.
Just wanted to make
That's
sure
our
you're
man.
ready for the segment. We're looking forward to talking to you here in a minute. Period. Okay.
Man, these guys can't see this. I'm gonna have to show them after the show. I'll take a picture of this, but they've got our logo up on the wall, projected up on the wall behind
Sweet.
us. It
They
looks
do.
great.
I like that. That looks awesome. We appreciate you guys. And this time we got Mike, and instead of Armand, who are the other two guys that we got? Diego and Harrison. We appreciate you guys. And Mike, you guys are an amazing team. And this Third Wheel Studio rocks. We appreciate it, and we're excited to be here. So we are going smooth. How for Mike was the only one of you guys that worked on our show last week. How much smoother is this? Even though the last week's show was hilarious and you loved it, we had you cracking up. As far as the guests, this is definitely a lot smoother than last week's show, wasn't it? Yep. Okay. All right. So the coach, I think he probably did get caught up with something, but he is saying he's getting ready to jump on it.
Oh, nice.
He said, "Do I just go to the email?" Yeah, because you sent him the link. Yep. Yeah, the Zoom link should be right there. Period.
Perfect.
Okay. So. Okay.
He'll probably be able to find
Yeah,
it.
because we're not going to say it on television here. So, So I sent it. It was the one that starts with WAA. All right,
cool.
sweet. Let's do this. We're going to rock it. Continue to rock this amazing episode of the Power Hour. Dr. Edward. There we are. Excellent. Coach Colin Oyama, can you hear me? Oh, all right. I heard you say something, but then it got muted. What was that again? You said you got me?
Oh, I just said, is it working?
Yep, we're good. Perfect. So Let me give you an introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, very happy to have this next guest on the show. One of the most respected and long-lasting, high-level coaches in the world of MMA, Mr. Colin Oyama. And your team is Team Oyama still, right, Coach?
Yep. We haven't changed too much.
Excellent, excellent. So many questions for you. I've had fans ask me questions to ask you, and I've got questions as always, and really appreciate your time, and so glad you're here. Here's a question from a fan that I thought was really interesting too. Are you any relation to Mas Oyama, the creator and founder of Kyokushin?
I get asked that a lot. I don't think so, man. But a lot of people come from Okinawa, and families get crossed, and I got relatives in Brazil that I don't know, and Peru and stuff. So
nice. Have you seen pictures of him? He actually looks like he could be a relative. I don't know if you've seen pictures, but
yeah, he's a pretty buff, scary old dude, man.
He is. Oh man, the stories I used to hear. I think when he was meditating under freezing waterfalls for like 4 hours, and just grueling stuff. I mean, that Kyokushin is a good style. Do you ever have any of your fighters, or have you had any of your fighters come from your Kyokushin background?
Let me think about that.
It's a good question.
We have a Japanese kid right now, but I don't think he started there. I think he started as a straight kickboxer. But
right. I think George St. Pierre was the most prominent Kyokushin guy in MMA, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's other. I mean, I've seen some in K1 a lot, so maybe I don't know if that's transferred over to MMA. But when K1 was in its heyday,
yes.
Francisco Filo and those guys were Kyokushin guys. And
yeah, I think maybe I
remember him head kicking guys and then doing that little kiai after he knocked everyone out.
Yes,
Damn,
yes,
crazy.
Absolutely. I think Semi Schilt may have been, and the late Andy.
Actually,
The late
was too.
Right, the late Andy Hoog possibly. There were just a great strong style of martial arts. So many years for you in the sport of MMA. Back when you started, I think it was the last couple years of the 90s, wasn't it, as far as coaching?
Yeah, it was before Zuffa was before they took over the UFC.
Right. I mean, the only teams pretty much of any note was you, Coach Colin Oyama, and people you coached was Pat Miletich, which later became known as MFS Elite. Remember Miletich Fighting Systems?
Yeah, I remember those guys.
Yep, and Lions Den.
Lions Den down in San Diego.
Yep, and then the Gracies, and it was it. It was pretty much you guys, and then you went.
And also there was a BTT as well.
That's right, Brazilian top team. Yep, which then became and that started out Carlson Gracie back in the day. Speaking of which, the late Carlson Gracie, did you ever meet him back then, or have any interaction with him?
I never met him. I met a bunch of his students, guys that trained under him, and guys like what was his name? There was a guy in Orange County that was one of his students that ran a Carlson Gracie affiliate, and he passed away about 10 years ago. But he was a really cool dude. He used to always tell us stories about him and stuff.
Yeah,
And,
he's a great
was
guy.
Waleed Ismail,
Yes,
that guy's a character, and he was a Carlson Gracie guy too. So
absolutely. And I know that he was.
and I read a book about him, so I learned a little bit about the guy.
Absolutely, yeah. He was great. He was kind of like one of the almost like unsung heroes of the Gracie family. So many people kind of look at Elio, with all respect, he was the first, and then kind of jump to Hoyce, Hickson, Horion, Hoyler, and forget Carlson. But apparently, like, Carlson was just like a beast in the 1960s and 1970s. And definitely deserves all the respect. I remember he would always go to the UFC fights despite what health he was in, and I think maybe also in Pride. Now, Coach, we're just seeing your name on the screen. Guys, is that on our end or there's
okay.
a coach?
No,
Okay.
I think I dropped the phone. I'm at the PI right now, so
I got you.
it's kind of hectic.
I hear you, man. I appreciate that. I really appreciate you. We'll go maybe 20 minutes more. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, I got time. I think Carlson gets overlooked too, but his physical style is something that a lot of people use still today.
Yeah, like really aggressive, right?
Yeah, physical, top game, strong. Not fighting off your back type of thing. I mean, I think the Helio thing was good because obviously you need to learn how to fight off your back.
Right. And
but I think Carlson brought a certain amount of physicality to a sport that's considered, fairly mild. He had definitely a different approach to it, that's for sure.
He really did. He and Hickson both, and absolutely amazing warriors. So many interesting stories from back in the days, like in the early UFCs when you had Horion wearing his tuxedo with a bow tie, and Robert Meyerowitz, Art Davey. I've had Art on the show. He's an amazing guy. You have any experience talking to Art Davey?
I don't know if he remembers me. I talked to him once, man, like maybe 15 years ago.
Right.
He came by our old gym to talk, but yeah, he was definitely a guy ahead of his time,
Absolutely. So early in the day, I know you trained a little bit with you helped coach one of my teachers, Fabiano Iha. Who were your early guys back in the day, other than Fabiano in the late 90s?
Fabiano, Rob McCullough.
Yes, Razor Rob.
Tito Ortiz, Quentin Jackson.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right, because that
with Rico Rodriguez as well.
Right, and that became Team Punishment, and I think Fabiano, and I don't know if he remembers correctly, but he said before Team Punishment, it pretty much was you and Team Fabiano Iha in Orange County. And those guys were all there, and then I think a few years later they became Team Punishment, and where Tito kind of took charge and came out with took charge at least as far as the name. But I think and then he came out with his gear. And you were there for a little bit of that, or did you move on by the early 2000s?
No, I was there for a long time. Once Quentin and him parted ways. I ended up with Quentin.
Right.
Quentin was the one that came up with the Team Oyama thing, actually, not me. But,
okay, cool. That's right. And
from there, and stuck, I guess.
Yeah. Did Tito never ended up fighting Quentin? I think they may have talked about it a few years ago, but it didn't happen, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of glad it didn't happen. I don't think I want to see them two guys fight each other.
No, because they were training partners for such a long time, huh?
Yeah.
So you were over there in Japan, and you were killing it in Japan, and then I think as a lot of fighters and coaches kind of transitioned out of Pride when the UFC took over Pride and shut it down, it took a little bit for you to kind of transition to the UFC, and a lot of coaches didn't. But you came in the UFC, and one of the things that I'm really impressed that you did is it seems like most teams have like one heyday or one golden era. Like we're still waiting for Jackson Wink to come back to being a top school. All respect for them, but you're
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
No
Sorry.
problem at all. So I was going to say, you're kind of killing it even more than ever now in the UFC, and you don't really see a lot of teams do that. You don't see a lot of teams be great 20 years earlier and then do even better. What do you attribute to the fact that here you are, 2 decades of coaching, and now you have like one of the best teams you've ever had, and your name and your the respect that you have is even stronger and getting stronger. How did you make that happen, and what was it like trying to come from Japan in Pride and make this happen in the UFC?
I think the win and pride, you need a certain amount of discipline to make things happen. When Pride was in his heyday, they had some really good fighters, I can still remember these guys, Igor Vovchanchin, Ricardo Arona, Bustamante, obviously the Magueras and Fedor. So
Yep, Mark Kerr.
It was a real physical way of fighting back then. I think a lot of coaches, when they left Pride and came back to the UFC, they got a little bit more like, well, it's an American market. We got to do it this way,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for me, it's like, well, I'm just going to do it this way. And, it's not for everybody. I think too many coaches try and like cater to every single athlete that comes to the door. Like, I'm 52 and I feel like, hey, if you fit the mold, let's do it. If you don't, then your ass can take a hike. I don't know,
Yeah.
But I'm not going to change everything I do just because one guy's, gets his feelings hurt or just doesn't want to put the effort out. I mean, I've always believed in a work ethic. So, I'll take guys that aren't as talented. If the guy works hard, we'll turn him into something.
Yeah. I like that. They say that hard work can beat talent the majority of the time, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're getting punched in the face. I mean, hey, man,
Yep. So some of the people you've got so many people. I know if I threw out 6 or 7 names, you've got 20 or 30 more. But some of the people that people will have heard of most in the UFC is you got Marlon Chito Vera, you got Carla Esparza, Alex Perez. Can you tell us some of the names of some of the people that are in the UFC and your team as well?
Louis Smolka, who fights this weekend in the UFC. Saeed Karkamanov, he's from Uzbekistan. He just got into the UFC, so he's also looking good.
Yep.
You guys ready? And we have several others. Frank Camacho,
right?
Also in the UFC. Brent Primus is in Bellator.
Yep.
And he'll fight for the title soon. I'll see you in an hour.
I'll pick you up at 9.
Okay.
I'll let you know when we leave.
And you got a bunch in LFA as well, right?
Yeah, the Japanese kid Yuma, he's on the verge of getting into the UFC after that knockout. So, yeah, we're all pretty excited. So tell me what time tomorrow.
You guys want to go at 9?
Okay.
9.
All right, and over the UFC PI, one of the amazing places to get training. And I think, Coach, you're there because you have someone going this Saturday in the UFC?
Yeah, the one that's coming up. We're not sure if they're in it. You got to apply for it, but I think they got a decent chance, I mean, they're both hardworking girls, and it'd be nice to see them get somewhere,
Absolutely. So Carla and Chito Vera have been absolutely killing it. What's coming next for both of them? Anything signed?
Well, I don't work with Chito anymore. He moved on to Ruka.
Okay.
But they're doing well. With Carla, hoping, we were to fight. They gave it, I can understand. But now that she lost, it's like, hey, let's make it happen. And,
yeah, without a doubt.
Rose has expressed an interest in making that fight happen as well. So, why not?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I tell you, Carla kind of reinventing herself was super, super impressive because most people know, some don't, that Carla was the very first strawweight champion, and she beat, I believe she beat Rose Namajunas for that vacant title after both having done extremely well at the Ultimate Fighter. And then Carla ran into a really prime, hungry Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who most people didn't really know how tough she was. And Carla looks like she just, I guess her game hadn't evolved as much. And so many fighters, because I think she was already like 29 or 30 then or something like that. And a lot of fighters at that point just kind of, you don't really see them again. Like I think some people were thinking, well, that's it for Carla Esparza. We're not gonna see her again. And what did she do to really reinvent herself and come back to the point where she at that point was probably not even in the top 10, and now I think she's deservedly number 1 contender. How did that happen? What went on to make Carla Esparza?
In all honesty, man, there's a lot of I think even with the fights that she's had since then, Joanna beat us fair and square, and then what's her name from Millennia? She beat us too. The other wrestler, she was tough.
Tatiana Suarez, yeah.
Suarez, yeah, which is funny. Just saw her in the lobby.
Really, and she's up in weight.
Those are 2 fights where I feel like, you know what? Hey, they got the better of us,
Yep.
But I don't feel like that girl in Canada beat us.
No.
There's no way in hell. I don't
agree.
think Adela beat us. We set a record for punches landed on somebody. So
Agreed.
when you start to take away some of those type of losses, she's only lost twice, and to Megumi Fuji back in the day, who was ranked #1.
Right. Yep.
And so like that record's deceiving with those 6 losses.
I agree.
I feel like a lot of those losses, they're pretty sketchy, man.
Yeah.
Same with the one in Aguilar, Florida, that split. I'm like, I don't know, man.
I agree. I agree.
And I also think people forget too, when you're on the tough show, you got to make weight 3 times. And then we had to fight Rose, and after Rose, we had to fight again. So by the time she fought Joanna, Carla used to weigh in at 115 just showing up,
Right.
Whereas a lot of these girls, I heard like some of these girls get up to 140 and change after the weigh-in.
They cut. Yeah, so she was small.
And so we still got a 20-pound disadvantage. So I think that's something that we have to figure out, like, how do we do that? We tried the food and everything else, but she just doesn't gain a lot of weight. I mean, she tried one camp where, I don't know, she was eating like 8,000 calories a day.
Wow.
Ridiculous amount of food. And it translated to like a pound and a half.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So it wasn't even that money and the expenditure of food wasn't even worth it for that pound and a half. But
yeah,
she's done a lot of weight training, so she's put on a lot of muscle. And I think also being older now, in her 30s, you kind of get that old man, old woman strength.
Yes. Yes.
So I think when she was undersized, she was really small. I mean, she was literally 115 pounds fighting at 115
Right.
pounds.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, she's a beast now. I forget which fighter it was. I think it was a fighter. I think it was a fighter from China that she just big sistered about 8 or 9 months ago. Do you remember who that was? She just beat the tar out of her.
Jan Yaojin, something close. I can't remember.
Lewis is trying to give me the name, but it's going to sound offensive, but I'm pretty sure it's wrong.
Right. Right. Yeah. That
Jan Yaojin.
Right.
Yaojin, but I don't know how to pronounce it.
Gotcha.
Well,
but
yeah, that girl was favored over us. And,
yeah.
And she talked a lot of smack too, so I think it kind of pissed everyone off a little bit, And
yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, keep talking. We'll see what happens.
It looked like that. It looked like, Carla fought like someone had insulted her mother or something like that. She beat the brakes off that girl, and that was really impressive. And so, yeah, it has to be Carla next. I mean, in reality, Weili Zhang shouldn't have gotten that second fight. Most people agree. It wasn't fun. It was an interesting fight, but it has to be Carla next. I mean, Tatiana Suarez is a flyweight now, as she probably always should have been. Talking about someone cutting a lot of weight, and so yeah, Carla's got to be next. And is there, obviously, Rose took some damage in that Weili fight, but is there any timeline on that you've heard, or is Carla ready to go at any time? Or are you looking at 2-3 months from now? What would be ideal for you?
I mean, we're ready to go at any time, but
okay.
Obviously, like they can say, hey, here's the date. Like, okay, and both parties will prepare for it. I mean, it's a title fight, so you'd hope it's not like one of these last minute things.
No, yeah, and that's happening a lot during this pandemic era. In fact, a ton of your fighters have fought in this last second notice, and I think you've got a record of like 90% wins. But it's still
still
tough.
I was talking about from Uzbekistan. That dude was in Uzbekistan, got on a plane, flew 30 hours, showed up to weigh-ins, made weight, and choked the dude out. So that's about as last minute as it gets.
That is crazy. Who is that fighter? Do you know the name? I know they have long, tough names to say, but who is that your fighter from Uzbekistan?
He's right in the card. Hey, say your name.
Said Yakub Kahramonov.
Did you get that? I couldn't say that with the accent.
Yeah, Said. Yeah, and the last name's hard to pronounce, but yeah, very, very good fighter, and that was amazing to come in and do that last second. Huge respect to him, and so I can't wait to see Carla come through with that. The Smoker, the Last Samurai. Who does he have again this Saturday?
He's fighting one of our other fighters' cousins, so that's an interesting one.
Oh man.
Vince. But Lewis trains all year round too, so he's ready for the last minute thing. And almost all the guys train year round, so we're kind of used to the whole "can you fight in a month" thing. So
that
doesn't really bother us. But he's actually been training for a while. He had to pull out of a fight because he had an elbow infection.
Oh wow,
ago, so
that's rough.
He's made he's obviously been to 2, 3, 4 camps already. So
definitely, he's got to be ready. Can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
Always an exciting fighter. And then what's up with Alex Perez? Anything set for him?
These guys all fight in a row. So Lewis fights this weekend, Alex fights the week after, and Ricky Simone fights the third week after that. So they're all in a row, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, Ricky Simone. I'm glad you mentioned him. Man, that was an impressive performance. Who was the guy that he beat in that last fight?
I can't remember all these guys. Who you're fighting? We're fighting that guy.
The last fight.
Yeah, Oh, Brian Keller. That's right.
Gotcha. And so Ricky's there. Congratulations on that, Ricky. I remember going over it with several other interviewers and handicappers, and everyone thought that fight was going to be tight, and several people did pick Kelleher. And in that fight, Ricky made Kelleher look like he didn't even belong in the cage, and a lot of people were scratching their heads saying, what's going on here that's making this fight not go the way everyone thought? And it really seemed like that was like the best Ricky Simone I think most people have seen. What caused that? How did Ricky look so good there? And he looked great anyway in the past, but it looked like this was the best Ricky Simone I've ever seen.
He's a real physical guy, and I think he's learned how to fine-tune some things and just, use more mechanics, a little less emotion, and just not be as wild. But he's very mechanically sound right now, and he's got a big fight coming up against Rafael,
So
he's a good listener. He works hard.
Right.
Definitely works hard. He's a grinder, man.
Nice. And who's his opponent? Rafael what? What's the last name?
I can't remember all these guys. Brazilian guy. Just fought Cody Garbrandt.
Oh, there we go. That's a good fight. Rafael's
a tough dude, so
yeah, Rafael's, yeah.
Somebody in the top 10, we got one. So that guy dropped some bombs.
Absolutely. That's going to be a great fight.
That's a good one. Sure.
It really is. Now, do you have any policies? Obviously, you don't tell your fighters what to do with their personal life as they're adults, but do you ever have fighters that are talking about the odds and betting, and do you discourage that, encourage that? Do you not make any comments on that?
I know a lot of our guys bet on Carla, make a lot of money because she's always the underdog. Except for Saeed, he bet against her twice and lost his ass.
Oh, no. You learned the lesson on that. Yeah. I would imagine Ricky's going to be a little bit of a favorite in that, like maybe minus 200 or something. What do you think?
Asum Sal's the guy that's ranked, so I don't know, man. I mean, I know he's coming off a losing streak, but he's lost to some good guys, and a couple of those fights have been pretty close. But he's somebody I respect a lot. I've watched him for a long time. He's got like 30 wins, so
yeah.
He's a good fighter, man. And
yeah.
It's definitely going to be a challenge for sure.
Without a doubt, both very strong men. The thing that was really impressive with Ricky was the wrestling against Kelleher. One of the things that I find is that a lot of wrestlers are told, don't wrestle, it's not exciting. Go in there, throw your hands. The audience wants to cheer. The audience wants to see this be kind of a boxing match or a kickboxing match. And I think a lot of wrestlers kind of maybe buy into that, because I remember Colby Covington was 8 years ago, he was holding a placard out in the street saying, we'll fight for food, because he couldn't get fights because they were saying your fights are boring. You go in there and you hold people down. And so I think that that a lot of fighters and wrestlers are tempted not to wrestle, but I think this day and age, if you have the better wrestling, you use it. And I'm not saying that Ricky was making any bad decisions, but man, the wrestling I think that Ricky has and his athleticism is just crushing. And I have a feeling that's something that you guys are going to stick with, aren't you?
Well, I think, people, if you don't like to watch a wrestling match or whatever, then you should go watch a boxing match.
Agree.
There's boxing. And, I don't know, I'm not a genius, but I seen Khabib fight. He's pretty damn good about taking people down and doing his thing. So, I think if you have a guy that has a good wrestling base, I don't think you should abandon it or forget it. I understand that some guys are like just, takedown monkeys and just hold you down. We would never tell our guys to just hold people down. If we take people down, we'll try and finish it down there,
Yeah.
Just like Carlo did with those elbows. So I understand the audience part. I mean, there's some wrestlers where they just hold guys down. And you're like, dude, I don't want to watch this guy.
Right.
And I get that. I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. People.
But wrestlers should push the submission attack to the top. They should push their striking game to the top. And I think it'd still be exciting, man. I mean, Khabib made fights exciting. He's the hammering guys. And then next thing you know, he's choking guys silly. So.
Yep. Without a doubt. And Ricky's at 135 now, right?
Yeah. We have a bunch of 35ers. Him. Saeed's at 35, so is Lewis. So we're pretty much a bunch of small people.
Yeah, that's good. You got a lot of people training with each other. It's got to be tough.
It's funny that you bring up Kelleher, because Saeed's fighting Kelleher in January. So
oh, wow.
It's kind of weird how it all goes around.
It does. It really, and it makes sense. Now, when you have guys that are high level like this at the same weight class, would the tendency be if a coach wasn't there for these guys to just like beat the brakes off of each other, or are they kind of aware that you don't want to do that with your sparring partners? It's got to be tough, or do you have to kind of keep these high level guys away from each other to an extent?
Nah, they all train together. We don't have a giant team. You know, we only got about 20 guys total when everybody shows up. So
Yeah,
it's not like we're funded like American Top Team or something.
right.
It's just like it's us, and then we're a pretty good blend of old and young. So you got guys that have a lot of experience. You know, Lewis and Alex. We got younger guys like Saeed and Yuma who have like less experience, but you know they're younger, but they're talented too. So everybody knows how to control. I mean, we don't have too many guys that are just going nuts. I mean, the ones that go nuts tend to be some of the younger kids. So most of the guys in the UFC, they got good control. They got a good understanding that hey man, like I don't get paid to sit down, so I can't afford to get hurt in training just because I'm going crazy. And I know some gyms spar a lot. We spar twice a week maybe, but I don't do the whole spar every day thing. That's stupid. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's one of the impressive things also I was going to say is you don't have a huge team, but yet you're there so much. You're there, nearly as much as the American top teams and the, Sanford MMA, the Elevation fight teams and the Alliance. I mean, and yet you have like a fifth of the people. So that says a lot to me about the quality, the fact that you're there with such
you can only focus on so many people. So if you have a team of 50 guys, you can't tell me that you're actually putting time into them. I mean, how can you actually develop 50 kids? I mean,
right.
You don't have enough time.
Very true. So, do you have any assistant coaches that help you, Colin, or is it all you?
Alex Perez helps us out with the wrestling. We got some jiu-jitsu guys, Carrie and Jiva. They help out with the ground game. So there's guys that definitely help out, but as a whole, as a group, these guys help each other out too. Like you said, if I'm on the road, one of these guys runs practice, and so they're all pretty good. I mean, Lewis is fighting. We got 2 fighters on the team here to help him out too, and so a lot of them. I think the benefit of having the team is you have guys that help you out. Versus, I think some places, you got guys that fight as soon as they're done fighting, they take off. You don't see them for 6 months. It's like, well, what's the use of that guy?
Right.
He comes in, fights, and leaves. It's like, well, shit. It's just a waste of time. So. I feel like we have a team, so we always have the numbers to help guys out. So no matter who's fighting, there's going to be bodies in there so they can work with.
Absolutely. So we got
good bodies, not just scrubs. I mean, actually good guys that actually push back and make them work a little bit.
Without a doubt, the old saying, iron sharpens iron, and however cliche it may be, 100% true. We got 2 minutes left with you, Coach. So your team is in Orange County? Is it Huntington Beach, or where is Team Oyama headquarters?
We're actually in Irvine. A little bit south of Orange County.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Not quite as near the beach.
Okay. Now, what advice can you give to an MMA fighter that's up and coming? I don't think you guys have any amateurs. It's all pro on your team, right?
Yeah, we got one amateur, but he's probably as good as a pro.
Makes sense. So if someone's a pro fighter and they're still training with a team that you never see in the UFC or Bellator or LFA, or they're training with their cousins and they're thinking, man, if I could get onto Team Oyama with these guys, I could be the best me I could be. What can they do? Is there any way they could try to go over and meet with you guys or show up or talk to you?
Oh, we're down to talk to anyone. I mean, they got to have a work ethic. And we've had a lot of guys come in that last a week or so.
Right.
They don't do this, they don't do that. You know what? That's great. Get the fuck out.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Babysit your ass. Like, you can't, you can't show up on time. You can't, whatever. You can't help each other out. Whatever. It's like, once the guy starts looking that way, it's like, you're not going to fit here, And,
right.
I think a lot of guys, too, they do the whole, like, hey, I'm broke, so, train me for free type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing that either. So
no, absolutely.
You need to get a job or show some responsibility, but you can't just do the whole like, everybody needs to kiss my ass because this is my dream. Like,
right.
Hey, that's your dream. That's great, but you got to work for your dream too. It's not a welfare program. So
yeah, without a doubt. If there was
we got guys that got full-time jobs. I mean, Christian Aguilera, he fought in the UFC. He was working construction jobs, working in the hospital. Now he owns a chicken wing joint and he's training. So
man, dedicated.
That's a UFC guy that has 3 jobs.
Yeah.
So
yep.
It's possible. For sure.
Without a doubt. If there was a talented guy with a great work ethic, is there a certain weight class you might be open to more than others right now as far as someone joining your team?
Anything from 55 down below, we're probably good. I mean, we'd have trouble with the heavyweight just because it's hard to find work for heavyweight.
Right.
We've had some heavyweights as individuals talk to me, and I was just like, hey, I don't want to waste your time. I just don't think we could really get enough work for you, just because training wise, I mean, you got a 260-pound dude. You need 3 other guys.
Yeah, makes sense. So
it's
more
hard to find that many big dudes that can go. So at 155 and below, I think we're good. I mean, that's where we would want them.
Makes sense. Sounds good.
Has the best impact. Yeah.
Sounds good. So if anyone's that weight and you think you have something in a great work ethic, not that you'll get in, but at least they'll talk to you down in Irvine at Team Oyama, and people.
We talk to everybody, man. And we'll give you a chance. You can come to practice and see what's up. But I think some guys they expect to hey, I'm gonna stay here for 8 months. You're like, no, man, you're not amounting to anything. And we've had a couple guys recently where we're like, hey, you know what, you gotta go.
Yeah.
Just not, you're wasting oxygen in here.
Yep,
So.
without a doubt. We can't have that, and you have the reputation for being a coach that has people work hard and you get results, and I appreciate that. Colin Oyama, one of the longest-standing high-level MMA coaches in the world, one of the world's best. Really appreciate you, man. Can't wait to see your team pull off more wins over the next few weeks. We'll be cheering for you. Really appreciate your time, brother.
For sure, man. Louis Smoka this weekend.
We'll be cheering for him, the last samurai. Good luck,
Yes,
Louis.
sir.
Take care, Colin. Thanks again, Coach.
Thank you, man.
You're welcome. See you.
All right.
Bye-bye. And that was Coach Colin Oyama, Adam Rorter. Really amazing, man. They keep getting stronger. Only about 20 guys on the team, yet you see Coach Colin in the UFC in the corner as much as the guys from the biggest teams. And that really says something because they've got 100 or 200 guys.
100% one of the strongest coaches out there, always has been. There's no secret about it.
Right, yeah.
I think we all know that, but he has the right idea. Instead of going in there and having 50 guys and just having it be out of control, he's keeping it under wraps. So
yeah.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
So, Colin, it's been another amazing episode, and actually this one I think we're ready to ramp up with some fun graphics again next week. This one being a lot smoother. It just has me a lot more excited than
Yes.
last week. Well, it was fun.
It was.
For those of you who missed it, you can actually go on to Fight TV, check it out. It was really fun. It
Yeah.
really was. Now, we're not going around sharing it
No.
because it was wild.
Yeah.
But it was that wild. You should go back and check it out.
Yeah,
And
it's entertaining. I said some crazy shit that I may never say again.
well, I hope you
But
do.
I'll
I hope
try.
you do.
Yeah, to some extent.
I'm sitting
yeah.
here twiddling my thumbs because after
Yeah.
last week I was kind of expected to come in and bring that color again.
Right. But we had all the guests show up.
All
so
the guests
when
showed
that
up.
happens. Yeah. So we don't even have time to break down the fights. Except I'll tell you what. In 1 minute, we can say that
Rob Font.
Rob
that's what I'm
Font.
gonna say.
Yeah, Rob Font over Jose Aldo. Man, it's gonna create history either way. If Jose Aldo wins, he's maybe getting the next title shot yet again. The legend continues, and Rob Font is set back and heartbroken, but not necessarily done, but set back. If the reverse happens, Rob Font living his dream, he could be the next champion and definitely should be the next title
I think
winner.
he will be.
And he may be, and then Jose Aldo, people may be saying it's time
I'm
to
calling
hang
it
it
now.
up. Yep, you got Rob Font. I think so too, although I hate to go against the legend Jose Aldo. I know if our first guest was here from Brazil, Buchecha, he would probably pick the legend Jose Aldo.
I am
But
a gambling man,
yeah, can't
and
put words in his
I'm
mouth,
putting
of
my
course.
money on Font.
Yep,
And,
Rob Font. We just got to see what font they use for his name, and that's what we asked last time. And Times New Roman we had from, I think, Mike, and then we had, what did you have? Someone had Comic Sans, and what did you have as the font that they should use for Rob?
Impact.
Impact. And Rob Font, you do have a lot of impact, so whether that's used or not, it's going to be amazing. Well, Dr. Adam Rorter, are you ready to tap out yet?
I am there, and before I do, I want to go ahead and say thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure to check out Lith Token. It's lithtoken.io, L-I-T-H, token.io.
Absolutely. One of the best. That may be the Bitcoin of tomorrow, and so if you can get in today, you won't be doing the wrong thing. But as
It's way beyond that. Just check out the website. You'll be able to look into it, figure it out.
without a
Colin, again, another great episode. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. We'll look forward to incorporating you even more. What I'll have to do if all the guests show up is just shorten it so we can have more you and me time. And we'll.
Well, I mean, we're gonna have to.
We will. Because otherwise, there's no you and me time.
I'm not working. We got Mike doing all the work now. So
that's true. So otherwise, we don't want to just have you sit there. But we will make it happen next week, and we're gonna announce our guests in social media for next week. Hope to have 3 amazing guests. Thank you, Dr. Adam Rorda, our entire team here, Mike and the guys there. Who was it again, Mike? And what are your two guys' name again? Harrison and Diego. Thank you guys, our great engineers here. Third Wheel is amazing. And that's about it. Spread the love in a positive way. Be that guy, be that girl. Let people know you got their back, even if you haven't talked to them for a while. Spread love to your animals, your pets. They are God's creatures. And make sure they have a warm place if it's cold out and a cool place if it's warm out. Make sure their water's fresh. Take your dog out for a walk. Make sure your cat litters, cat box is clean, and the cat litter is clean. That's about it. Big love to you. Big respect. Thank you so much for the entire team. I'm Colin Crandall for the MMA Power Hour. And tonight I'm tapping out.